Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio, how to survive hidden healthcare and hospital dangers with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rulo. Pat has over 20 years experience as a professional public speaker, and for the next hour, she's going to be your healthcare and hospital survival guide. Each week, you will say, oh, as Pat exposes and explores little-known hospital hazards, delves into the deep waters of dangerous healthcare practices, picks the brains of her good-looking and influential guests, all guaranteed to keep you and your family safe in today's fragmented healthcare system. And now your host, Pat Rulo.
I can't bear you no more, baby. I got too much pride. But I'll survive.
Hello, I am Pat Rulo, and I'm so happy to hostess this next hour, where I will serve you a generous helping of everything you need to know to help you and your loved ones stay safe. Well, as usual, today's number one show on patient safety is very thoughtfully packed with information that you need to know. Our guest, empowered by a tragic medical experience, has created a meaningful way to help healthcare professionals apologize when something goes wrong. And remember, we're not here to scare you, just to prepare you. And now, here's the hospital hazard of the week. Relationships. Sometimes on this show, we talk about medical errors and mishaps that are somewhat out of our direct control. But today, I want to discuss something that we as patients can definitely control, and that is our relationships with our healthcare staff, doctors, nurses, aides, and even the housekeeping and transportation staff within a hospital. What do I mean? Well, think about how many people there are in the hospital on any given day. Thousands and thousands. And who are you? You're the new heart attack in room 202 or the hip replacement in 303. No one knows anything about you, and really, no one seems to care. Is there something we can do about this anonymity? Here's a story I think exemplifies what I'm talking about. Every time I go to a certain bakery restaurant, I always order tuna on a bagel. No tomatoes, please, but I would like lettuce and onion. Now, mind you, this is not a sandwich that is on the menu. In fact, in order to save time, this establishment has many sandwiches pre-made so that the customer can quickly point and be gone. So when I order my sandwich, I am now an irritating customer who wants something special. The employee has to stop the usual routine and make the special sandwich. Every single time the sandwich is served to me, it's wrong, and I always get tomatoes, and I'm not sure why. It's beyond belief that someone might not want tomatoes, but they always show up. Well, usually the onions are missing, and always the tuna is smushed onto one side, and the bagel is uncut. So now I have to go back to the counter to get a correct sandwich, or usually I just deal with it and remove the tomatoes, forget about the onions. And did you ever try to cut a bagel with a blob of tuna and a plastic knife? Not easy and not good. I always end out with tuna on my hands, and it's just a big mess. Well, one day, I was placing my irritating order. I complimented the gal behind the counter on her beautiful necklace. I asked about the purple stone, which I thought to be sugilite. Quite surprised that anyone would recognize the stone, she said yes. Then I asked, was it made by a Navajo named Harvey Begay? Her eyes opened wide. Why, yes, how do you know this? I then explained that I used to own an American Indian art gallery in Chagrin Falls and in Ligonier, Pennsylvania, and I made many trips to New Mexico to purchase art for my shop. So we chatted for a few moments, a little bit longer, and then I went to find a seat in the restaurant. A few minutes later, when someone served me my sandwich, guess what? For the first time ever, it was made correctly. Tuna, lettuce, onions, all spread evenly and smoothly on a bagel that was actually cut in half, right down the middle, and no tomatoes. Well, do you know what I attribute this dining miracle to? Yep, you guessed it. She and I had developed a little relationship. We had a meaningful conversation. I became someone to this employee besides an irritating sandwich that's not on the menu. So let's move this to the hospital. What if you could become someone special, a friend, and not just the irritating call button in room 203? Well, if you're not feeling well, you may not be able to do this by yourself, and that's why it's important to have an advocate, someone else with you, someone to make friends with the hospital staff. Well, here's a few ways to stand out, and I mean in a good way. First of all, come prepared with knowledge. The more you know, the less dangerous the place will be. Bring a current list of all medications, allergies, emergency contact numbers, healthcare power of attorney, living will, and so on. You will stand out because, trust me, not many patients do this. Now you will stand out as being a smart patient. Bring a small poster of pictures of you when you're healthy and happy, your spouse, children, grandkids, pets, your garden, anything that allows others to see you as a real person with a real life and not just a faded hospital gown and messy hair. Now, when Nurse Susie asks about the kids in the picture, you can ask Nurse Susie if she has kids or grandkids. And when she tells you about her son's upcoming soccer game, you can inquire the next day about the results. Did Johnny's team win? Find out what matters to them. Find some common ground. Do you both like a certain TV show? Are you both fans of a local sports team? Now you are a friend. You care, they care, and no one wants to hurt a friend. Next, remember people's names and use them often. Everyone loves to hear their name. Keep track of the folks who enter your room. And when someone finishes with a service, thank them. Thank you, Terry the transporter, for getting me to the X-ray department this morning. Thank you, Helen housekeeper, for wiping down the bathroom. Actually, a phrase that gets a lot of attention is this one. Thank you for helping me. Or thank you for helping us. That is powerful. It stops people. First of all, not many folks are actually thanked. And secondly, people do want to help. So when you phrase it that way, thank you for helping me, it allows the other person to feel important. And you can't get any better than that. And also be sure to preface any request with the word please. And I talked about this before, but as an advocate for a patient, dress respectfully. Look the part of an intelligent, well-informed, and powerful person. Well, these are just a few ideas of ways to stand out in a positive way. You want to create any type of dialogue that separates you from the other folks on your floor. And here's my last and most powerful suggestion as a simple way to start a conversation that shows that you are an informed patient. Bring a copy of my book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, with you to the hospital. The cover stands out as well as the title. I've tried this myself, and if you leave the book on your tray table, everyone who enters looks at it and comments, giving you the perfect opportunity to say, yes, I am concerned about healthcare-acquired infections and patient safety. Now they know that you know what to look out for. And if you bring the patient safety logs with you, when the doctor or nurse comes in and asks what medications you currently take, you simply whip out your logs and everything is already documented on these forms, along with any current allergies, contact numbers. I guarantee you, not many people come this prepared. This is just another way to stand out in a positive and empowered way. Are you caring for a family member or a friend? Do you have caregiver burnout? Here are a few questions to ask yourself. Are you withdrawing from friends, family, and other loved ones? Feeling blue? Experiencing changes in sleeping patterns? Are you feeling irritable? Losing interest in activities you used to enjoy? Seeing changes in your appetite, weight, or both? Getting sick more often? Emotionally or physically exhausted? If you experience 2 or more of these symptoms, you may be experiencing caregiver burnout. Caregiver burnout is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. And burnout can occur when home care providers don't get the help they need, or if they try to do more than they are able to do. Caregivers are often so busy caring for others that they tend to neglect their own emotional, physical, and spiritual health. The demands on a caregiver's body, mind, and emotions can easily seem overwhelming, leading to fatigue and hopelessness, and ultimately, burnout. Other factors that can lead to caregiver burnout include role confusion. Sometimes it's difficult for a person to separate his or her role as a caregiver from their role as a spouse, employee, child, friend, and so on. Or unrealistic expectations. Many caregivers expect their involvement to have a positive effect on the health and happiness of the patient. And some caregivers place unreasonable burdens upon themselves because they often think that providing care is their exclusive responsibility when it really shouldn't be. You don't have to go it alone. No one expects that of you. Reach out for some help. Call senior helpers. They know how to match the proper caregiver with you and your loved one. Call today and let them know that I sent you. 1-877-922-STAY, S-T-A-Y. That's 1-877-922-STAY. They're local and serve our immediate area. Call them today, 1-877-922-STAY. Senior Helpers, care and comfort at a moment's notice.
Senior Helper.
And with that, let's hear some legal news you can use. During my live events, many people ask about long-term care. So I thought I'd get the answer from our resident expert, Pat Schraff, a nice and friendly attorney at Schraff & King. Let's spend 2 minutes with Pat. Welcome to the show, Pat.
It's great to be here.
Pat, tell us, what is long-term care and how do you pay for that?
Long-term care is very much misunderstood. Many people think that long-term care is going to a nursing home for care. But actually, long-term care includes care within your home, in an assisted living facility, perhaps in an adult family home, or care in a nursing home. In order to pay for that, people need to really know what the costs are and how they are going to be paying for that care. There are several ways to pay for the care. First, there's private pay. You can pay the cost yourself. If we're looking at nursing home costs, that may be anywhere from $6,000 a month to $14,000 a month. That cost is a bit beyond the average person's ability to pay. So looking at other options than having to privately pay and perhaps exhaust all of your money and all of your assets, people should take into consideration what else is available to pay for long-term care. First, long-term care insurance. This may not be for everyone, but it is an option to consider. Long-term care insurance will step in and pay the costs of in-home care, assisted living, nursing home care if needed. Long-term care insurance policy can allow people to keep more of their assets than they might otherwise be able to keep. But if people are not able to obtain long-term care insurance, or they do not have the resources to privately pay, then we're looking to other programs that might be available, like veterans benefits through the VA. The primary payer, though, of long-term care is the Medicaid program. Medicaid also provides in-home care, assisted living, and nursing home care, but you must be financially eligible, and this usually means spending your assets down toward the cost of your care. It also involves having few assets and little income to pay for your long-term care.
So if our listeners have further questions about long-term care, how can they go about getting more information about you and Schraff & King?
They can contact us at 440-585-1600 or www.schraffking.com.
Well, thank you for being here today, Pat.
Thank you.
Coming up, our guest has an astounding story to tell about his brother's lack of proper hospital care and how this spurred a new movement called Sorry Works. You need to hear this. After the show, be sure to visit the website speakupandstayalive.com for more life-saving information. Before a hospital stay pops up unexpectedly in your life, you can purchase the book Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide. It's found exclusively at the website speakupandstayalive.com or is available in person at all of our speaking events. Like I mentioned earlier, bring the book to the hospital with you. It's the best way to stand out and in a positive way. And remember, we donate 2 handmade pillowcases to either a troop member or to a local veterans shelter for every book sold, and we put your name on it as the donor. So for a mere $20, you benefit, and so does some well-deserving warrior. And to help your entire group, organization, business, or church stay safe during any healthcare or hospital experience, invite me to speak. Our presentations are lively, interactive, fast-paced, and about as fun as hospital safety can be. Email us at speak@speakupandstayalive.com or call 440-725-5462. And now, back to the show. Listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am Pat Rouleau, your hostess, and by now you know that I take great pride in bringing you only the best of the best when it comes to our guests. And today's guest Fits the bill. Doug Wojciech is a disclosure training consultant who has had several personal and professional experiences with tort reform and medical malpractice issues when he lost his oldest brother to medical errors in 1998. In 2005, he founded an advocacy organization called Sorry Works with the goal of trying to encourage physicians, hospitals, and insurers to think differently about the medical malpractice crisis and to allow these professionals to realize the solution was in their hands. The Sorry Works Coalition has grown quickly to over 4,500 members nationwide, and the group has been publicized in countless publications, including Time Magazine, National Review, National Law Journal, and American Medical Association News. Doug has trained and consulted thousands of healthcare, insurance, and legal professionals on disclosure and apology through his live presentations, as well as his weekly e-newsletters, his best-selling Sorry Works Book 2.0, and his recently released Little Book of Empathy, as well as his webinars. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be talking to the audience today. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Doug, is it okay to share your brother's story with us so that we can understand what you were doing at the time and how his experience prompted you to create Sorry Works?
Sure. My brother Jim walked into a Cincinnati, Ohio hospital at 2 o'clock in the morning complaining of chest, shoulder, neck, and stomach pains, all the classic signs of a heart attack. And Jim was a big, burly, tough guy, kind of guy that got asked to play football in high school. So for him to show up in an emergency room at 2 o'clock in the morning without mom and dad shoving him there meant something was really wrong. So he gets to the emergency room, and the doctor said, well, look at you. You're built like a brick house. You're a big, strong guy. You're 39 years old. You're kind of young. Must be something wrong with your stomach, to which my brother replied, or maybe my heart. And they did do an EKG that evening. They found a murmur in his heart. My brother replied, I've never had any heart issues as far as I know, and I'm sure hurting up there. And they said, well, again, look at you. You're 39 years old. You're built like a brick house. They gave him an ulcer cocktail for a couple hours, and they sent him home without drawing his blood. A few hours later, so they released him around 5 in the morning, around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. My parents, they had to bring him back because by that time he was starting to pass out. The oxygen levels in his blood were going that low. They get him back in the same hospital, get him back in the same emergency room. By mid-morning, they draw the blood. Sure enough, the enzymes of the blood showing the heart is at stress, being damaged. And by early afternoon, they have him in the intensive care unit. And this is where the holes of the Swiss cheese, as we say in patient safety, started to line up. The computer monitor over my brother's bed read Ray Wojciech. Ray Wojciech. My brother's name was Jim. Who's Ray? That's my dad. Very significant because my dad had a heart stress test done in this very same hospital just a couple months prior to my brother's passing. Dad had a perfect cardiac workup at that time, no blockage. In fact, the cardiologist told me he knocked the machine off the wall, then wrote in the chart, he's got the heart of a 30-year-old man. So fast forward a couple months down the road, there's my dad looking at a computer monitor with his name on it, but his oldest son was in the bed, went and got the attending physician, said, wait, I think there's been a mix-up. I'm Ray, that's Jim. They wanted to argue with him about who was who. They had pulled out driver's licenses, and they eventually changed the computer monitor, but not before they were using Dad's charts to form a diagnosis of a bacterial infection of the heart. For 2 days, they plugged Jim full of antibiotics. He was admitted on a Tuesday. He died on a Thursday evening. Last afternoon of his life, he was spitting up blood. He was in extreme pain. He was really going downhill. They decided to run a probe up his leg, and sure enough, they found 4 arteries blocked. He crashed during the test and died in emergency open-heart surgery. The damage was simply too great. And the surgeon who had been brought in at the last minute to try to save his life, had not been involved in his care up to that point, was furious when he walked out of the operating room, went up to my parents and said, if the jerks at this hospital had done their job and got your boy to me 2 days ago, and they should have, I could have saved him. We do bypass all the time, but the damage is too great. After that, the wall of silence went up. Nobody would speak to my parents. Nobody would talk to them. Even the surgeon who was so honest that night said, look, the lawyers told me not to speak. And it was a cover-up, so we had to file a lawsuit. And long story short, we were successful in that litigation as far as getting money, but at that time, we did not get any apology, any acknowledgement, or even explanation of what went so wrong, how they were going to fix it. So that was a real strong motivation to get in this work. And I've done, at that time, cases being settled, I was doing a lot of work on tort reform for both in the medical community as well as the plaintiff's bar. And the personal experience, along with my professional stuff, where I was seeing these two groups basically talk past each other and not really get to the reason why people file lawsuits or what makes patients and families so angry. I said to myself, there's got to be a different way. Few hospitals were starting to pick up this approach of just being honest and disclosing and taking care of people. And so we came up with the term Sorry Works to describe this process, give an identity, and see if we could help it get legs. And sure enough, it's absolutely taken off over the last few years.
Wow, that's an amazing story. You wonder how you can recover from something like that as a family.
Both my parents are Depression-era kids, so they've seen tough times. They know bad stuff. And my mom was very blunt. She said, look, you're devastating to all of us, especially me. My brother was like a second father. And my mom said, look, you can go on living or you can lay down and die. You know what your brother wants you to do. And the time when he died, I didn't know I'd be doing this, but the opportunity presented itself, and it's been very meaningful and provided a lot of closure and healing for not only me, but my entire family. And we know that this work has helped a lot of people, not only patients and families, but doctors and nurses too, because doctors and nurses sometimes suffer as bad or even worse patients and families when something goes wrong. They're human beings too, and they chew themselves up, literally, including a lot of suicides. And they're not allowed to talk about these things and get the closure and healing they need just as badly as any patient or family.
Right, that's understandable. Talk to us about the difference between empathy and apology.
Empathy is what should happen after something goes wrong in a hospital. Now, I say something goes wrong, I'm not exactly talking about malpractice or an error or we know for sure someone's at fault, just something's gone wrong. There's a known complication, and there's an upset patient, upset family, upset caregivers. What we teach people at Sorry Works is that when something goes wrong, the doctor, the nurse, the hospital, the practice, the whatever, needs to go out and empathize, say, Pat, I'm sorry this happened. I feel horrible for you. We're going to do a review, figure out what happened, and we're going to stay in touch and we're going to figure this out together. That is empathy. Even though you said sorry, there's no omission of fault there. Apology would be, Pat, I'm sorry I screwed up. We did the procedure wrong. It's all our fault and we owe you something. That would be apology. Both phrases use the word sorry, but empathy is just about showing concern and compassion and wanting to stay connected, whereas apology is about admitting fault and making amends. We really teach that to our doctors and nurses, as well as patients and families, because there's confusion out there about that, and there's a lot of fear around the S word, sorry, in medicine, because for so long doctors and nurses have been told never to say it because you'll get the hospital sued. And we tell doctors and nurses, no. It's the context and how you say it and the way you present it, and empathy is absolutely appropriate, because we know one of the biggest drivers of med mal litigation, one of the big reasons patients and families file lawsuits, because no one ever says sorry. Nobody ever says sorry. No one ever shows they care or they continue to care. And I can't tell you how many times I've had patients and families talk to me as I do this work and say, they say to me, gee golly whiz dog, if someone just would have said they're sorry, we wouldn't be in the midst of this whole lawsuit. It happens all the time.
Right. I experienced that myself in a situation with my mom where no one ever showed empathy, no one ever gave an apology. And, people don't want to sue. It's a lengthy and grueling process. It's not what people are looking to do. And perhaps if they got a little conversation from the other end, it might be helpful. Is an apology synonymous with disclosure? So if someone apologizes, can now that be an admission of, yes, we did something wrong? And does that open the door to lawsuits, or does it reduce lawsuits?
No, it reduces lawsuits, and you got to be careful about your wording. Disclosure is many things. It's empathy, it's communication, it's talking about what we know when we know it. And it includes apology. When you have a credible review, it can include apology. When you have a credible review involving outside experts, it says, the care was not good here. The standard of care was not met or it was breached. Disclosure is just, it's a catch-all term for post-event discussions with patients and families. Apology is a subset, if you will, of after the review shows we made a mistake, after the review confirmed a mistake, then we're going to go and apologize and admit fault. One of the things I often get from doctors and nurses, they're afraid of this because they were always told the exact opposite. Don't talk about stuff where you get sued, and they never were taught the stuff in medical school or nursing school. I say to doctors and nurses, if you're concerned about litigation, if you're afraid of getting sued, if you're afraid I'm going to run to a lawyer and pop off and sue you, the best thing you can do for yourself and for me is to stay connected with me. Mm-hmm. Because when relationships are broken and I lose total faith in you, I have no faith in you to fix my problems or to address my needs, that's when I go find a new friend. That's when I go find the attorney and we sue you. So staying connected and getting in there and working, and if you made an apology, taking care of it, I can't tell you how many plaintiffs attorneys have told me through my travels, doing all those things takes away the reason for litigating. There's nothing to litigate about. If you got an honest person trying to take care of a problem, there will be discussions and maybe even mediation, but why would we go to the courthouse? Well, there's no reason. There's nothing to argue about.
Right. Do healthcare providers have to get some kind of clearance, say, from risk management department or the legal department of the hospital before they can voluntarily speak to a patient about what happened or before they apologize for an incident?
As far as the empathy piece, staying connected post-event, you really don't need, quote, clearance.
Right.
Good idea to be trained. And, a lot of times when we come into a hospital or work with an insurance company, we're coming through risk or claims or legal or administration here. They're the ones that are teeing it up with the docs and nurses, and that's the big challenge right now. A lot of organizations, healthcare systems, insurance companies around the country actually are moving towards or already have adopted disclosure. The challenge for them is how do you get this message down to thousands of doctors and thousands of nurses. How do you do it? And that's stuff we're working on. Sorry Works. We have a new online learning program. We've partnered with the Elm Company, Elm Exchange, to make this something that get the message down to these folks. So a lot of organizations are moving towards this, and they want their people to stay connected post-event because they know they've known through years of doing this that when docs run away, nurses grow cold or break off communications, that's when the lawsuits happen. As far as apology, admitting a fault and saying, hey, the hospital owes you something, you need to pause before you do that. The worst thing that can happen, Pep, and I've heard sad stories around the country where disclosures coming online, sometimes doctors get a little exuberant, if you will, and they run out to the family and they say, oh, my God, we just killed your sister. We just killed your child. It was all our fault, blah, 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 blah. And then the review comes back and says otherwise. The family will never believe otherwise. They will always believe that doctor or that nurse said malpractice, that, you killed my loved one. And they'll go crazy. It doesn't matter what their own lawyer tells them, doesn't matter what the judge or jury tells them. They will go crazy. For not only for the protection of the hospital or the insurance company, but also the protection of the patient family, we always encourage and tell doctors and nurses to be very slow before apologizing. Be quick to empathize. Be quick to stay connected and meet the immediate needs of your patient or family. Wrap your arms around these people and take care of them more so than you did pre-event. Be slow to admit fault. Even in a circumstance like a wrong side surgery where everyone can see you made a mistake, even in that you have to be careful. You can say, look, we're supposed to operate on the left knee, we operate on the right knee, we're sorry that mistake happened. We need to figure out how that mistake happened. We're not going to throw Dr. Smith under the bus or throw the nursing staff under the bus. We need to figure out what happened and then come back in due time.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you want to stay with us. This is Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I'm Pat Rulo, and we are talking with Doug Wojciech, founder of Sorry Works. And we're learning about the doctor and hospital disclosure and apologies when confronted with an adverse patient event. Let's get back to that healthcare provider. When they disclose any kind of negative outcomes, what are the ramifications to them as far as their state licensing status? Are they penalized in any way?
Well, that's a little bit of a sore subject. The thing that drives a lot of punitive stuff, whether it's a lawsuit, whether it's a complaint to the state medical board, whether it's somebody picking up the phone and calling a newspaper reporter or a blogger or whatever, is, again, the cover up and hide, run away, deny, and defend. Disclosing, apologizing takes care of a lot of the bad stuff that the doc's afraid of, as well as nurses are afraid of. However, with the state licensure boards, there still is a little bit of an issue because, state licensure boards are under a lot of pressure to get their numbers up. Sometimes disclosing docs can be a little bit of an easy target. So that's something we're working on at Sorry Works to say, hey, look, go after the truly bad apples, the ones that make all the mistakes, the ones that are constantly having problems. If you've got an honest doctor, from a family perspective, if I have a doctor that's sitting down trying to disclose and talk with me and take care of my problems, I don't need the government there at that point. I don't need a state regulator at my side.
Right.
Me and the doctor can work through those things. That's something we're working on. It's an issue, but it's not a showstopper or even a game changer for disclosure. Disclosure is really taking root across the country in all sorts of venues, and it's really picking up steam very nicely.
Well, that's a good thing. What about the patient? I'm sure the patient has some kind of responsibility too, or ways that they can help keep those lines of communication open and transparent. What can we as patients do to see to it that happens?
It's a great question. I appreciate you asking this because this is a new project we're working on. Earlier today, I was writing a text for a booklet that we're going to be putting out shortly before Christmas, early December. We've done a lot of work educating doctors and nurses and, healthcare and insurance and legal professionals about disclosure, and they're coming around and they're getting where they need to be. But patients and families are often woefully uneducated about what to do post-event. Regardless of their disclosure or not, that most folks just don't know what to do after something goes wrong. And they have no idea what they should expect. They have no idea how to navigate the system. They have no idea to get what they want. If they need to find a lawyer, they have no idea how to do that. They just have no idea. And sometimes it's not only to their detriment, it's to the hospital's detriment. I can't tell you how many times I talk to risk managers who work in very ethically minded hospitals who say it drives them crazy when they are willing to sit down and talk with a patient or family and fix the mistakes they've made, and the family won't return a phone call. The family won't sit down and meet. They run away and hide, and it's kind of ridiculous. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked with plaintiffs' attorneys about this, and they say, it is ridiculous. They say there's no harm in the family going back to the hospital and sitting down and listening, because either one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get what you need as far as what you need financially and otherwise, or, acknowledgement and otherwise, or you have the door slammed in your face. And that get the door slammed in your face, that creates a lot of great evidence for a lawsuit. Either way, you can't lose. So in this booklet, we're going to put a lot of the very basic things, teaching teaching patients and families how to react, how to navigate what they can do, what they shouldn't do after something goes wrong so they can maximize their chances to get what they need, get the closure and healing they need after something goes wrong in a medical setting.
Well, good. I look forward to that. You need to keep me posted on that. Something that I would like to share with our listeners. And I do a lot of speaking events. That might be something to take on the road as well.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know, does that come from anger, fear, or ignorance? When you're in the situation you've never been in before, how would you know how to react? And so I guess we need to be taught.
Yeah, my family's been through malpractice twice, Pat, and we've been successful both times in getting resolution of the cases, both those cases. But talk to most med mal plaintiffs lawyers, they reject 99% of the cases that come in the door. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Well, sometimes there's no malpractice, but I think a lot of times it's because patients and families just have no idea how to organize their case, how to market their case to a prospective lawyer, and how to sell themselves, and how to behave, and how to work within that system, and how to get the attention of an otherwise busy lawyer, busy law firm. So those are things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about all that stuff. What my goal out of this project is not to generate more lawsuits. The goal is to educate patients and families like we've educated doctors and nurses so that when things do go wrong, both these camps, patient-family camp and the doctor-nurse camp, are pushed toward each other and working together, and we get quicker, fair resolution to these things without having to go to the courthouse.
You know, sometimes, though, it's just the little things. People are already fearful and angry. And I remember after my mom spent 4 months in the hospital due to one giant misdiagnosis, the hospital and the surgeon sent a satisfaction survey. So it was obvious that we were on some kind of a list that no one looked at, or perhaps the mailings were done by a third party who doesn't know that the hospital staff and the surgeon nearly killed a person, yet they're sending this. Yeah. And it's those little things sometimes that can really get under a person's skin and maybe close the doors.
That's right. Yeah, and that's one of the things we teach. You know, we teach a lot of things in Sorry Works, including, for example, when we work with hospitals, shutting down all institutional communications post-event. It's not that we're not going to communicate with the patient or family, but they're just not going to hear from the organization. They're going to hear from an individual within the organization or a group of individuals that they know. So that means we're going to, like in your mom's case, we're going to shut down the satisfaction surveys. In my family's case, you know, we got a bill after my brother passed, and it outraged my mother. Mm-hmm. We also got a form letter. It was a sympathy letter addressed to Mrs. Jim Wachesek. Whoops, he wasn't married. We're going to shut down the fundraising letters and the marketing magazines and all those things, like you said, that can just take the roof off the house and close down the channels of communication that can benefit everybody, not just patients and families, but also doctors and nurses. So we need to be very smart about it. And disclosure organizations, you know, like University of Illinois Medical Center in Chicago, with one click of a button on a keyboard, all that stuff comes to a grinding halt. And it doesn't get started again until the disclosure team says it gets started again. So we got to be smart. We got to be thoughtful, because you're right. Simple little things like that, stupid little things like that can just take the roof off the house.
Right. It's a very sensitive time for everyone involved. I know that. Doug, how can our listeners learn more about you and what you do? They
can come to our website, sorryworks.net, 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 or on my cell phone, 618-559-8168.
Well, that's being very accessible. Doug, I thank you for being on our show today. You've certainly brought to light a delicate subject that, as a patient, I want to see more of: empathy and disclosure and basic regard for another person and their loved ones. And I thank you for tackling such an important piece of healthcare and patient safety.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to share this message with your audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Stay in your seat, because coming up, we've got emails, moments, and, of course, everyone's favorite game, Fear the Wheelchair. Well, listen as I spend the next 2 minutes with Melody Carl from the Solia Spa in Brecksville. They always have the answers. Welcome to the show, Melody.
Hi, thank you.
This is a question that I've always had, and actually it's a concern, especially being on a patient safety radio program. When I go to get a manicure, I always worry, am I dipping my fingers in a bowl with a little rock that somebody else has been dipping in for the last 3 months? What should we be looking for to make sure that we don't get any kind of fungus among us?
You should really watch for the tech, which is the girl or guy that's doing your service, to watch for how they clean things. They shouldn't just wipe things off and throw it back in their drawer. You should actually see the bowls washed out with a disinfectant and then rinsed with hot water. Same thing with files. You don't want to go to a place where you see that there's dust from the client before you on the file that they're going to use on you, because that's how you can transfer fungus. You can transfer warts that way, staph infections, MRSA. It's really an easy way way to get sick.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I asked the question, and I'm concerned all the time when I go in to get my nails done. I almost think, should I bring my own supplies? But if you go into a high quality salon such as yours,
Definitely just keep your eyes out while you're there, and don't be scared to ask them, could you clean this or did you? Because it's your health. So you need to really be proactive with that.
speak up and stay alive.
Yes,
Right?
perfect.
Well, now, where can folks come to get a wonderful manicure that's going to be germ-free?
Come to Solia Spa in Brecksville, and we use hospital grade disinfectants on everything, and it's cleaned and changed after every client. And in our foot bath, it's jetless, so you actually get your own fresh tub of water with every pedicure that you get, so it's never used by someone else beforehand.
That's why you're on this show, because we preach that all the time. All right, folks, be sure to go to Solia Spa, 6909 Royalton Road in Brecksville, 440-526-0522. Or you can visit them online at Solia Spa, SOLIA, soliaspa.com. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you.
Do you or someone you know work in the healthcare field? Ask them if they know that bacteria can live on fabric for weeks and even months. Think of the cross-contamination opportunities. Think of scrubs. How are they washed? With bleach? Oh no, that would ruin the pretty colorful designs. Most scrubs are made from poor quality broadcloth and are not bleachable. BrendaJune.com scrubs, their fabrics drape beautifully, they breathe, and they move with you as you go about your busy day. Pants, skirts, tops, their fabrics are durable and bleachable. If you wear scrubs, you owe it to yourself and your patients to wear scrubs responsibly. Visit BrendaJune.com for high-quality, American-made, bleachable scrubs. That's BrendaJune.com. Take control of your protection today. Visit BrendaJune.com or call 1-855-668-7278. They make a great gift too. That's BrendaJune.com. Listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, with the only show in the world that offers patient safety tips served up in a wheelchair, which can only mean one thing, and that it's time to play the game acclaimed by critics, non-critics, and sometimes even self-proclaimed as everyone's favorite game of all time ever.
Fear the wheelchair.
Yes. By now, you've probably heard me talk about how I fear the wheelchairs that grace the front doors of almost every hospital. Patients and visitors get out of their cars and hop into the wheelchair, and I always wonder, where have they been? What have they touched? Then they wheel around the hospital, use the bathroom, sit in waiting rooms, visit patients, all the while picking up additional and deadly hospital bacteria like MRSA, C. diff, a bit of E. coli, and perhaps some Candida yeast. And at the end of the day, they're back in their car, leaving the contaminated wheelchair at the front door of the hospital, ready for the next person to climb aboard. This makes the wheelchair a high-touch, highly contaminated vehicle, capable of spreading infections all over the place. So the wheelchair is now this show's representation of all hospital hazards, kind of like our mascot. So here we go, our favorite game of...
Fear the wheelchair.
Listen as Joe reads some right or wrong statements. Then, even though I can't hear you, shout out your answers along with Bob. Is the statement right? Or is it wrong? Joe?
All right, here we go. Right or wrong. Always order tomatoes on your sandwich. You'll probably get them anyway, and you don't want to irritate the employee with a special request.
Seriously? Is that the question?
Of course not. Here's the real question. Right or wrong. To stand out in a hospital in a positive way, bring photos of yourself and your family.
What do you think about that, Bob?
Well, I think that's definitely right.
Yes, that is one way to show your healthcare staff that you are a real person with a real life and not just another ringing call button. Relationships make the difference.
Right or wrong. If a doctor shows empathy, that means something has gone terribly wrong.
Ooh, what do you think, Bobby?
That may be right.
That's wrong. Empathy is a good thing. Oh, here we go again with the clapping and the wrong answers. I don't know what's going on here, folks, but empathy is a good thing. If a doctor speaks to you with understanding, feeling, and emotion, be sure to reinforce that behavior and say, thank you for talking with me like this. I appreciate your saying this. We are all human beings, and it really shouldn't be that difficult to communicate from the heart.
Right or wrong. Long-term care only occurs in a nursing home.
What do you think, Bob?
I'm going to say right.
Right. Well, that's what most people tend to think, Bob. But actually, long-term care can happen within the home, assisted living facility, or adult family home, or even a nursing home. Everyone should have some sort of plan for their long-term care, making it an essential part of our life's plan in general.
Right or wrong, use a low-toxic product to clean your home, such as Dawn dishwashing detergent.
What do you think, Bobby?
I remember that. That one's right.
Right, that is right. And a microfiber cloth. Microfiber picks up and holds the soil better than other rags, and you want to use products that do not contain dangerous chemicals and fumes.
Right or wrong, patients should refuse to talk with the hospital if a medical mistake happens.
Now what, Bob?
Oh, that's wrong.
You are correct about that. Conversation is a way to maximize your chances to resolve the issue. Communication is key, and both patients and healthcare staff must come together in an attempt to create a common resolution outside of the courthouse. Just another point in favor of relationships.
Right or wrong, the superbug MRSA can live on hairbrushes.
Ooh, what do you think about that, Bobby?
I don't know about that. That may be wrong.
Ooh, no, that is right. And stay tuned, because later in the show, I've got some hair-raising news about this, Bob. It'll make you wish you were bald. Remember, the more you know. Joe's shaking his head. Remember, the more you know, the safer you'll be. And you heard about it here on Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Thanks, guys, for playing everyone's favorite game.
Fear the wheelchair.
You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am Pat Rulo, where the boys are keeping you safe during any healthcare or hospital encounter. Coming up, a brush with danger. Stay in your seat. Do you or someone you know need help to navigate a hospital stay or a confusing medical situation? Concerned about nursing home care, or just need a neutral medical person to guide you in the right direction? Or are you completely confused about health insurance and all of the interesting options? Well, I have the solution. She is Hari Khalsa, an experienced patient advocate who can help. And she's just one phone call away at 1-800-980-HEAL. That's 1-800-980-HEAL, HEAL. Or visit her website, healthcarewhisperer.com. And now for my personal oh moment, and this really did cause me to say oh, as it is a brush with danger. One of our past guests on the show, Dr. Chuck Gerba, a microbiologist from the University of Arizona, mentioned something in passing about MRSA being found on hairbrushes. Well, this little nugget of weirdness caused me to do some research, and it's my job to share all of my little-known stay-safe strategies with you. Here's what I found. We've talked about MRSA. It's a staph infection that's resistant to antibiotics, and thus it's hard to treat. Everyone has bacteria on their skin, including staph, but most of the time it doesn't present a problem. Well, Dr. Gerba said, we were quite surprised how many bacteria were in hairbrushes, and since they're usually in the bathroom, it's not a surprise to find fecal bacteria on them. We even found E. coli in some hairbrushes, which Dr. Chuck Gerba says probably is not any concern with the disease risk, although aesthetically, combing my hair with E. coli is probably not what I want to do. He goes on to say, I was really shocked at how common MRSA was in hairbrushes. Well, personally, I would never have guessed it was on almost half the hairbrushes that he tested. It probably is because MRSA likes to live on your skin and is finding skin to survive longer in hairbrushes. Well, this immediately made me think of beauty salons and barbershops. So here's my top 8 tips. When you enter a salon or a barbershop, look around to see if it's neat and clean. If it doesn't look clean in general, like hair nail clippings on the floor and dust on the tables, it's time to find a new salon. Look at the restrooms. Are they dirty? Do they lack liquid soap and clean towels? If they do, that means the technicians aren't washing their hands properly between clients. Kind of like that TV show, Tabitha's Salon Takeover. Number 2, make sure the sinks are clean between clients and that a freshly cleaned towel is put under your neck. 3, The salon should wash their robes and towels after every use. Many of them do not. Not only can MRSA survive on fabrics, lice can live on brushes, robes, and towels too. Number 4, all brushes, combs, scissors, and razors have to be sterilized between clients. If they're not properly sterilized and come into contact with bacteria, germs can grow and live on your scalp. The sterilization solution must be changed regularly, and the container should not be overcrowded with combs and brushes. Tip number 5, make sure the stylist doesn't stick his or her fingers directly into styling jars or containers, which can breed bacteria and be transferred to your skin. That's called cross-contamination. Tip number 6, it's important to make sure your hairstylist doesn't have any sores or cuts on his or her hands. Number 7, avoid dirty electric razors. Dermatologists note they commonly see ringworm when electric razors are used. And finally, Dr. Chuck Gerba concludes, you shouldn't share hairbrushes, or at least disinfect them once in a while. Have you disinfected your hairbrush lately? I know I haven't. I haven't even thought about it until now. So here's the tip. To disinfect your brushes, you can find a product called Barbicide at salon supply stores that are open to the public. Just follow the directions on the container. Well, now I know what all of us will be doing after today's show. And be sure to tell a friend, MRSA is a life-threatening bacterium. There's really no need to be subjected to it when all we want is a haircut. Well, folks, today we talked about the importance of relationships, and we learned many ways to appear special to our healthcare providers. And our guest, Doug Wojcicki from Sorry Works, continued the conversation about keeping the lines of communication open with our doctors and our hospitals, especially if something goes wrong. And we just revealed the little-known secret about MRSA, hairbrushes, and salon and barbershop safety. And listen next week as I rock your mind. Be sure to be here. That's next Saturday morning, where you can find us 2 times. Yes, that is twice, from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW. And you know, you can listen live via the internet on WHKradio.com at 7 and WHKWradio.com at 9. I am Pat Rulo, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters.
The information provided in today's broadcast is for informational purposes only and was not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem or as a substitute for consulting a licensed medical professional. Participating as a program listener, guest, or caller should not be considered medical advice. References to any entity, product, service, website, or source of information should not be considered as an endorsement. If you missed part of today's show or just want to share the information with friends, you can download a copy of the show at speakupandstayalive.com. That's speakupandstayalive.com. Want even more information? Purchase a copy of Pat's book at the Speak Up and Stay Alive website. Once again, it's speakupandstayalive.com.
This is Pat Rulo. When you get a chance, become a friend and like us on Facebook. We're called Speak Up and Stay Alive. Then post your questions and comments on our Facebook wall. We may read them next week. Who else do you know who can benefit from this life-saving information? You can keep your group, club, business, or church safe from hospital hazards. I speak live and in person too. Our events are fun, fast-paced, interactive, and jam-packed with serious information. Your crowd will love it. Just email me at speakupandstayalive.com or call 440-725-5462. Until next week, remember to ask others to wash their hands. You have to speak up and stay alive. Call me, email me.
I'll survive. I'll survive. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Is your home stressing you out? Are your appliances and gadgets damaging your health? Are you concerned that modern technology could be ruining your and your family's health? Scientific evidence suggests that everyday chronic low-intensity magnetic field exposure poses a possible health risk. Therefore, the conclusion is that magnetic fields remain classified as possibly carcinogenic, meaning They can cause cancer. And what about the radiation levels from wireless computers, routers, cordless phones, baby monitors? I know I've experienced disrupted sleep, grinding teeth, headaches, and waking up tired and didn't know why. Others I know experience hyperactivity, concentration and memory problems, muscle and joint pains, cardiac palpitations, fatigue, irritability, and erratic high blood pressure. And after multiple visits to doctors, still could not get an accurate diagnosis. Finally, I asked myself, could all of these symptoms be caused by invisible hazards? There is a growing body of research that shows that today's ubiquitous technology can be damaging to our health. So I had someone come to my home with highly sensitive measuring devices to measure the levels of electric frequencies, magnetic frequencies, radiation frequencies, and dirty electricity within my home. Oh my, was I ever shocked! Things like cell phones, routers, chargers, power strips, smart meters, dimmer switches, and on filled my supposed sanctuary with invisible yet damaging health hazards. Once I removed these hazards from my home, I slowly began to feel better. So I'm suggesting that you too have a healthy home consultation to identify problem areas in your home. The folks at Healthy Home will test the EMF levels in your home using small, specialized equipment, focusing particularly on areas of the home where you spend most time. And then we'll make recommendations about how you can reduce your exposure and minimize the effects on your health. The home consultation includes full measurements of electromagnetic fields within every room in your home. It takes about an hour, and you will be given a comprehensive report that includes full recommendations on how to reduce the negative impacts of EMFs and turn your home into a healthy, healing, and safe environment. And for a limited time, I'll even come out with them to meet you and help explain the findings. Call me, and I'll pass on the information. 440-725-5462. Don't feel like this. When you can feel like this. Schedule a Healthy Home consultation today, and I'll come too to meet you and share what I know about healthy homes. Call 440-725-5462. That's 440-725-5462. And remember, a healthy home is a happy home.